Okay, we're back in part 2 of the SolScript tutorial series. In the last video we touched upon how to install SolScript or how to get it running on your system. In this video we'll just do some serious talk about the language, what is SolScript, what can you do with it, and so on and so forth. So this video might be a little bit, well, some people would call it boring, I'd call it interesting, but well, let's just get on with it. So SolScript is a scripting language, as the name already suggests. It's not a standalone language, so you're not going to write your application in it, you're not going to write an application from scratch, compile it to machine code, whatever, get an exe or whatever your operating system uses and run that. You want to embed SolScript in another application, so that this application can then, as the name suggests, create scripts that can extend the functionality of said program. So it's an embedded scripting language. For example, if you write a game, you can use SolScript to whatever, customize your enemy AI logic or give your level designers a very simple to use scripting language to customize the logic of what's going on. Or you can write some of your glue code for your business application SolScript to communicate between two different applications and whatnot. The usages are, well, practically endless, if I may say so. But how does it actually work, and what are the features of the language? SolScript itself has both object-oriented and procedural features, and both are rather powerful. You can have your classes, you can have class hierarchies, whatnot, you can extend other classes, you have interfaces, though interfaces are not implemented as of version 0.3, which is the version we're using right now. So, but it's a planned feature for a later version, and maybe in the version you're looking at, the interfaces are implemented already. So your basic object-oriented stuff and your basic procedural stuff of global functions and so on and so forth. But both are integrated very well into each other so that you can use them together completely seamlessly, or you can just stick to one programming style, just purely write procedural style or purely go with object-oriented design. It's completely open to you. So, type safety. What about type safety? Well, that's a little bit of an odd one. I'd say it's dynamically typed. But most people associate dynamically typed with being completely typeless, which is not true. SolScript is by no means typeless. The types are merely checked during runtime. For example, let's create a global field, because that's really easy. I'm not going to, well, no, let's explain that right now. Global variables, or for example, variables that would be declared inside function, which is what you would typically call variables in most other programming languages, are called variables. They are discarded once we would leave this. So for example, we would create a new variable here. That's not how you declare variables, but it doesn't matter. The variable myvar would be discarded once we leave the function, because SolScript does have automated garbage collection, so you don't have to worry about organizing your memory and whatnot. But if we have a global variable, which is not tied to a function, that's called a field. That counts both for global fields and fields inside classes. That's called fields. So what did I want to discuss? Yeah, I wanted to create a global field and assign a type to it. So what we could do my field equals 42. So now we'd have a field with the value of 42. That's, by the way, how you can actually declare global fields. So that's correct syntax. So that's what most people would see as dynamically typed. But you could literally go ahead and say, hey, that field is of type number. And that would work perfectly fine. So what you could also do right now is do that. That would be an error, but it would only be thrown at runtime, because it's not a statically typed language. There's no compiler checking your type safety. This would crash at runtime, not at compile time. So now another great feature of the type system is the bane of a lot of other programming languages, null, or in SolScript called nil. What are we going to do with nil? Well, a lot of other programming languages do the following, or because they compile to machine code, they do the following, or bytecode, or whatnot, whatever programming language you're using. Primitives can't be assigned null, and your classes or reference types can be assigned nil, or can, you know what I mean. SolScript does it a little bit differently. By default, everything can be nil, but that's very easy to change. Your two best friends, exclamation mark and question mark, are used to define nullability. An exclamation mark means that a field or a variable cannot be null. A question mark means that a field or variable can be null. If you don't specify any of them too, then it is assumed that it can be null. So this would work perfectly fine. And this wouldn't. Well, this would again. So that's the type system for you. The exclamation mark can take some time to get used to, but it's a really powerful concept, and I'd recommend you to use the type-safe system of SolScript. You could also forget about this entirely and use what most people would see as dynamically typed, which, by the way, is the same as writing this. Any is means I don't care about what type you give me. I really don't. I'll accept anything. So that's what you can do. There's also the construct class, which would accept any class, but the Notepad++ syntax highlighting doesn't like me doing that. So there we go. What have I missed? Alright, exactly. SolScript, as of now, is purely interpreted. It's not compiled. This will change in the future. You will be able to compile SolScript in the future. But as of now, you purely interpret it and are fine with that. Again, there will be an option to compile it to some sort of bytecode in the future. You'll never be able to compile it to machine code. That's one thing that's never going to happen. But you will be able to compile it to some sort of bytecode in the future. One more important thing is that SolScript is implemented in .NET. Namely, it's implemented in C#. This also means that it has a very powerful API. Well, that's not purely because it uses .NET, but SolScript has a very powerful .NET API, so you'll be able to customize a lot of the behaviors. You'll be able to register new classes from .NET, meaning you could actually make your .NET classes, say, your business application has your C# class customer, and you want to expose that class to SolScript because your business logic needs to mess with the customer class. You can do that. You can totally expose your C# class to SolScript, and it will be a seamless interaction between those two. They'll work as if it was declared in SolScript. So it has seamless interaction with .NET code, and you can actually customize how your classes work with attributes and whatnot, but that's not topic of this video. This will be something we'll touch upon later, how to integrate SolScript in your .NET application. So that's the basics about SolScript. You can also check out the video description. They have some nice little links to the downloads and the wiki and whatnot, but you should know those links. You watched part 1, right? Great. Okay. So in the next video, we'll talk about the type system. You might wonder right now, we already talked about the type system. No, we'll talk about all the different types in SolScript. Right now we talked about how the type system worked. Next video we'll talk about the types in SolScript. So our booleans and whatnot. See you then.